Pretty simple message from Jesus in the gospel this morning, but it's a really tough one. Jesus is telling us, if you want to follow me, buckle up because it's going to cost you everything. Here's Jesus this morning walking along. There's huge crowds following him. The crowd's totally excited, probably thinking, this guy's the Messiah. They might even be thinking things like, he's going to overthrow Rome and make everything easy. And then what happens? Jesus turns around and drops a bombshell on them. He says, if anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, children, brothers, sisters, even his own life, that person cannot be my disciple. Hate your mom and dad? Hate your kids? What's Jesus talking about? Is he promoting family dysfunction? Of course not. If I remember right, wasn't it Jesus that said, honor your father and your mother? So what's going on? Well, this is classic Jesus hyperbole, which is using exaggeration to make a very firm point. And in this example, we have to understand what the word hate means. The word hate in Aramaic means to love less or not prefer, meaning that it's conveying a sense of prioritization rather than outright animosity or hatred. So when you hear Jesus saying, hate your mother and father, the word means to love less or not prefer, meaning that one must prioritize their commitment to God above any and all other relationships, even one's own life. It's all about priorities. Jesus is saying, if you want to be my disciple, I have to come first. Before your family, before your job, before your comfort, before your own life. Me first. Because if anyone else or anything else is number one, you're not really following him. You're following some watered-down version of Christianity that's all about feel-good vibes and no sacrifice. And if that's not enough, he doesn't stop there. He continued, whoever doesn't carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. The cross, well, in Jesus' time, the cross wasn't a pretty necklace or bumper sticker. It was a torture device, a symbol of shame and death. Jesus is saying to us today that following me means dying to yourself every day. It can mean embracing suffering. It can mean rejection, whatever comes, because that's the path that he walked. And then he gives them those two parables to hammer it home. The first one about building a tower. You don't start any big project without first sitting down and figuring out if you can afford it, right? Otherwise, you're going to end up with a half-built eyesore with everybody laughing at you. And second, he describes this king going to war. No one would march into a battle with 10,000 troops against 20,000 troops without first calculating if you can win, or if you might need to negotiate peace. Jesus is telling us today that we must count the cost of discipleship. Don't jump in half-hearted, because if you do, you're going to bail when it gets hard. And as most of you know, it gets hard. A life of discipleship to Jesus Christ is not easy if you're all in. Following Jesus isn't a cruise ship, sailing along on smooth waters, drinking Mai Tais. It's a battleship, being prepared for all those things that are going to be thrown at you from all directions throughout your life, defending your beliefs, always being cognizant of that evil one trying to mess up your life. That's what Jesus is calling us to today. Not some lukewarm, I will follow you as long as it doesn't mess up my plans kind of faith. Nope, it means total surrender. Look at the saints. St. Francis of Assisi, rich kid, party boy. He hears Jesus say, sell all that you have and follow me. And he does. Takes everything he owns, gives it to his dad, and follows Christ. Radically. Mother Teresa, leaving her comfortable life to pick up dying people off the streets of Calcutta. They counted the cost, and they said, yes, Lord, you're worth it. So what's your tower? What's the war you're fighting? Maybe it's that addiction you've been hiding, porn, alcohol, whatever. Jesus says, hate it more than life itself and follow me. Carry that cross to confession, to AA, to whatever it takes. Or maybe it's your relationships. Parents, if you're putting your kids on a pedestal like little kings or queens, I know I do it myself with my grandson, making their happiness your idol, Jesus says, love me more. Teach them to love him first, even if it means saying no to the latest gadget or activity that pulls them away from Mass. And spouses, if your marriage is all about what I get out of it, you're building your relationship on sand. Jesus says, hate even your spouse compared to him. That means loving your husband or wife as Christ loves the church, sacrificially, putting God first so you can love each other better. It may mean going to adoration together, praying the rosary together as a family, going to Mass together. It costs time, ego, and comfort. But what's the reward? A marriage that reflects heaven. And then Jesus ends with talking about your stuff. Jesus says, none of you can become my disciple if you don't give up all your possessions. No, he doesn't want all of us to become homeless or to become beggars. Don't give things up. Just detach yourself and don't let stuff rule your life. Don't let your bank account or your house own you. Give generously to the poor, to your brothers and sisters that are in need. Look at your budget this week. Where's God in it? If Netflix is getting more than the collection basket, rethink your priorities. My Christ the King family, this gospel isn't meant to scare us away. It's meant to invite us deeper. Jesus isn't some tyrant demanding everything. He's the lover of your soul, saying to you, I gave everything for you on the cross. Will you give everything for me? And if you do, you're going to find freedom and joy and purpose. Because half-hearted discipleship is exhausting. It's like trying to build that tower with no plan. You end up frustrated and empty. Today, as you come up to receive the Eucharist, think of the cost. Jesus is offering himself totally to you today in that host. Will you offer yourself totally back? Say yes. Renounce whatever's holding you back. And if you're thinking, well, that might be too hard for me to do, well, remember, you can't do any of this alone. Always rely on his grace to help you, on the sacraments that you've received, and most importantly, rely on the Holy Spirit that he gave you and that resides within you.